It usually doesn't start with crying. It starts with pressure. The argument is already happening. Voices are raised just enough to feel sharp. You want to explain yourself, but your chest tightens first. You feel your throat close, your eyes burn, and suddenly, tears arrive before you've finished your sentence. And the worst part isn't the tears, it's the shame that follows. You tell yourself you're overreacting, that you look weak, that you've lost credibility in the middle of trying to be understood. So you apologize for crying instead of continuing the conversation. But you're not crying because you're fragile, and you're not crying because you can't handle conflict. You're crying because something inside you is overloaded. People who cry during arguments are often trying to do too many things at once: regulate emotion, stay connected, explain themselves clearly, protect a relationship, and protect their sense of self. That internal multitasking creates pressure, and tears are the release valve. Many people who cry during conflict were taught early on that emotional expression was risky. So instead of expressing anger outwardly, their body turns the emotion inward. They don't explode, they absorb. And absorption has a cost. This is why tears often show up right when someone is trying not to cry. The body steps in when the mind is overwhelmed. In psychology, crying during arguments is often linked to emotional flooding. That's the term used when emotional intensity exceeds the brain's capacity to process information calmly. In simple terms, too much is happening at once. When this occurs, verbal clarity decreases, access to language narrows, and the body looks for a way to discharge the excess emotion. For people who cry easily during arguments, this response is often shaped by early relational experiences. They may have learned that anger caused withdrawal, conflict led to disconnection, raising their voice felt unsafe. So instead of escalating, the system collapses inward. Crying becomes the safest expression available. This is especially common in people who are highly empathetic, emotionally attuned, conflict avoidant, or raised in environments where emotions had to be managed carefully. Another layer that's rarely discussed is emotional invalidation. People who cry during arguments often feel deeply misunderstood, not just in the moment, but historically. So when an argument touches an old wound, the emotion isn't just about this conversation. It's about all the times they weren't heard. The tears carry history. And because crying is visible, it's often misinterpreted. Others may see manipulation, or weakness, or an attempt to shut the conversation down. But psychologically, it's usually the opposite. The person crying is trying to stay in the conversation, not escape it. Crying during arguments is not a sign of poor emotional control. It's a sign of high emotional sensitivity under pressure. In psychology, sensitivity is not fragility, it's responsiveness. People who cry during conflict often feel things quickly and deeply. They process emotion in real time, and when intensity rises, their body responds honestly. The problem isn't the tears. The problem is living in a culture that associates emotional expression with incompetence. Many people who cry in arguments also think carefully before speaking, replay conversations afterward, feel responsible for emotional outcomes, and carry guilt long after conflict ends. They don't cry because they want sympathy. They cry because they're trying not to lose connection. Over time, this pattern can create avoidance. They stop bringing things up. They swallow frustration. They minimize their needs to avoid crying in front of others. But suppressing tears doesn't create strength. It creates distance from self. Strength looks different here. Strength is learning to recognize when emotional flooding is happening. Strength is pausing a conversation instead of apologizing for your nervous response. Strength is understanding that your tears are communication, not failure. And when this is understood, something important shifts. You stop seeing yourself as too emotional. You stop apologizing for your biology. You stop equating composure with worth. Crying during arguments doesn't mean you're losing control. It means your system is asking for space, safety, and clarity. And honoring that is not weakness, it's self-respect.